Okay, let's get right into it and break down Canada's Budget 2025. Now, this document is a lot more than just a spreadsheet of numbers. It's really telling a story about where the country is headed. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack its core arguments, its biggest spending plans, and the future that's trying to build for Canada, all based on the government's own words. Right off the bat, the budget kicks off not with dollars and cents, but with a pretty dramatic take on the state of the world. It sets the stage by arguing that the world we've all gotten used to, well, it's fundamentally changing, and it's happening fast. You really have to pay attention to the language here. The document uses this incredibly powerful word, rupture, to frame everything that comes next. And that's no accident. It's meant to signal a sense of urgency, a clean break from the past. It's basically saying, the old playbook, it just won't work anymore. And according to the budget, this rupture isn't just one thing. It's happening everywhere. You know, those reliable trade deals and supply chains that kind of kept everything stable, they're now fractured. So the big question is, what does Canada do? Well, the government says this new chaotic reality is the entire reason for the budget's new direction. Okay, so with all that global turmoil as the backdrop, the budget starts to bring the focus back home. It asks, what does this rupture actually mean for Canada? And the document lays out both the big challenges we're facing and what it sees as some major opportunities. Now, the document doesn't sugarcoat the problems here at home. It's very direct in acknowledging the pressures that so many Canadians are feeling right now, things like the high cost of living, rising unemployment, and a general sense of uncertainty for businesses. These are laid out as the core problems this whole budget is supposed to solve. But right after listing all those challenges, the budget plays what it sees as Canada's trump card. This chart shows our net debt compared to our economy is the lowest in the entire G7. And look, it's not just by a little bit, it's by a huge margin. The argument here is that this gives Canada what they call fiscal space, or to put it simply, it means we have the financial breathing room to make big moves. So you can see the case the document is building. It's saying, look, despite the global chaos and the pressure at home, Canada is actually in a strong position. The argument is that we have the skilled people, the natural resources, and the stable institutions to not just get through this new era, but to actually come out ahead. So what's the actual plan? How does the government want to do this? Well, the document lays out a three-part strategy to deal with everything we've just talked about. This is the framework for all the spending and all the actions to come. And here it is, the how. It's a three-part plan: protect, build, and empower. You can think of it like this. Protect is all about national security and sovereignty. Build is about the economy, infrastructure, housing, you name it. And empower is focused squarely on affordability for regular Canadians. This is the blueprint for the entire budget. You know, they say if you want to know someone's priorities, just follow the money. Well, this chart makes it pretty clear. Almost half of all the new spending, a full 42%, is going toward protecting our sovereignty. Another huge slice, 36%, is aimed directly at making life more affordable. It's a very clear signal of intent. And the scale of this thing is, well, it's massive. We're talking about $280 billion. And this is for new, long-term capital investments over the next 5 years. Just to be super clear, this isn't money for day-to-day government operations. This is cash specifically for building things, new roads, more housing, and a stronger national defense. Of course, all of this raises the billion-dollar question, or in this case, the $280 billion question. How are they going to pay for it all? The document details a pretty major shift in how the government spends money, and it's all summed up right here: spending less to invest more. And here's the answer. The budget says it's found $60 billion in savings and new revenue over 5 years. This is coming from something called a Comprehensive Expenditure review, which is basically a fancy way of saying they did a deep dive into all government departments to find savings and cut what they see as inefficient spending. This chart really puts that spending shift into perspective. Just look at the change in the growth of day-to-day operational spending. For the past decade, it's been growing at over 8% a year. Going forward, the projection is for it to grow at just 0.5%. That is a dramatic change in how the government plans to operate. So, to make sure this whole plan stays on track, the document introduces 2 new rules, or fiscal anchors, as it calls them. Rule number 1, balance the books on day-to-day spending by 2028. Rule number 2, make sure the country's overall debt keeps shrinking compared to the size of the economy. And this chart is the perfect way to see how that first rule works. The big idea here is that by 2028-29, The government will no longer be borrowing money just to keep the lights on and pay for its daily operations. From that point on, the document says any deficit will be only for funding those long-term investments designed to grow the economy for the future.
Okay, so after all the numbers and plans, where is this all supposed to lead? The final part of the budget ties everything together under one big vision. They're calling it Canada Strong. This is the endgame.
At the very heart of this vision is a big shift in thinking. The document argues that Canada has to move from a past of reliance, where we counted on a stable global system, to a future built on economic resilience. In other words, the goal is a stronger, more self-sufficient Canada that's ready for an unpredictable world. So, where exactly is that $280 billion going? You can think of this as the country's 5-year investment portfolio. As you can see, the two biggest bets are on infrastructure at $115 billion and on making our economy more productive at $110 billion. And those are followed by major new funding for defense and, of course, housing.
So let's make this a bit more real. What does this all look like on the ground? Well, protect means things like finally hitting the NATO 2% defense spending target. Build means creating a brand new agency to get more homes built faster. And empower translates directly into things like canceling the consumer carbon price and cutting taxes for millions of Canadians.
So there you have it. The document paints a picture of a world in crisis and lays out a sweeping, really ambitious plan to respond. It frames this as a make-or-break moment for Canada. And that leaves us all with the big question. Will this generational plan actually build a stronger Canada? And in the end, what will its legacy truly be?